Okay, let's dive in. Picture this. You're staring into your fridge, right? And there it is, that gorgeous bottle of champagne you've been saving. You see the color, the label, you feel that anticipation, and then bam, you remember the price tag.
Ah, yes. That familiar moment. And that's exactly where today's deep dive kicks off. We're
Yeah.
looking at a specific bottle that triggered that exact feeling for a reviewer over at Wineful Living. It's the Vilmart and Cuvée Rubis champagne.
Right. So our mission today is pretty clear. Unpack this review, get to the heart of what makes this champagne tick, figure out if that nearly $100 price tag makes sense, and help you decide if these, well, beautiful pink bubbles might be right for your next special occasion.
Exactly. And the source, Mindful Living, it sets that scene perfectly, that whole internal tug of war. Should I open it? Is it worth it? It really highlights that it's not just about the taste, but the whole perceived value in choosing the right moment.
Okay, so let's get into those first impressions from the review. They say straight off, this isn't your everyday run-of-the-mill bottle. It's got, and I quote, personality and attitude. Sounds intriguing. Like it makes an entrance.
Ah, yeah, like a guest who just lifts the whole vibe of the party. And they actually put a number on that personality. Their snapshot score gives it a 7.6 out of 10, which is, solid, definitely good, but not a 10.
Right, so there must be some nuance there. Let's break down the pros they listed. What stood out positively?
Well, visually, it sounds like a knockout.
Mm.
A gorgeous deep blush pink color. They even called it totally Instagram-worthy.
Okay, so it looks the part. What else?
The bubbles apparently stick around persistent and elegant, not just a quick fizzle. And a big plus for many these days,
Yeah.
sustainably grown grapes. So eco-friendly drinking, check.
Good to know. And taste-wise, in brief?
Sophisticated dry finish and a nice creamy texture. That sounds pretty appealing.
And they also mentioned something about it changing in the glass.
Yeah, that it develops. It gets more complex, more interesting as it warms up a bit. Not just a one-note wonder.
Okay, sounds promising. But every rose has its thorns, or every champagne has its cons, I guess. What were the downsides mentioned?
Well, the big one we already touched on, that $99.99 price. Oof. The reviewer themselves said it's not exactly casual sipping territory.
Definitely not an impulse buy at the checkout. What else?
They flag a sharp acidity,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting. They note it might be too intense for some palates,
Mm-hmm.
so potentially divisive.
Okay, sharp acidity. Noted.
And another point, maybe a pro for some, con for others. It's less fruit-forward than many might expect from rosé champagne. Yeah. So if you're dreaming of, intense strawberry jam flavors, this probably isn't your bottle.
Right, managing expectations there. Anything else on the con list?
Just that it really needs the right serving temperature to show its best self. Serve it too cold, and apparently you miss half its personality.
Okay, so a bit demanding, perhaps.
You could say that. So pulling that first snapshot together, beautiful, complex, sustainable, but pricey, potentially sharp, and needs specific handling.
Which leads us right back to the core question the review raises. Is that distinct personality worth that price tag for you? And to figure that out, we really need the full tasting lowdown.
Exactly. Let's walk through the sensory details from the review, starting with appearance, which seems like a big part of its charms. That gorgeous deep blush pink, it sounds like it really makes a statement visually.
Yeah, and the bubbles, too. They describe them as steady, persistent, creating a perfect champagne fountain effect. Fancy. It sounds like it presents itself really well, special without being overly flashy.
And then moving on to the nose, the aroma, the review talks about a lovely bouquet. What specifics did they pull out?
A really interesting blend, actually. You get the expected crushed red berries for a rosé, but then these subtle brioche undertones come through.
Ah, brioche. That lovely, toasty, almost yeasty note from the aging process, right? Adds that layer of complexity, like fresh pastry or something.
Exactly. And they also picked up delicate citrus peel, some floral notes like fresh spring peonies.
Peonies, nice.
And get this, nutty nuances that apparently show up after it's been in the glass for a few minutes.
Wow, okay. So, quite a complex and evolving nose. Not simple at all.
Definitely not. So what happens when you actually taste it? The review says the first sip is crisp and direct.
And remember that sharp acidity from the cons list. Sounds like it makes itself known right away.
Yeah.
A prominent mineral edge that announces itself immediately. So it's not shy. It grabs your attention.
Seems like it. The review then describes it moving into flavors of part cherry, pink grapefruit, and a whisper of almond paste.
Tart cherry, grapefruit. Okay, so still fruit, but leaning towards tart rather than sweet.
Precisely. They make a point of saying it's not the fruit bomb some might expect. It's more of a refined flavor profile complex, but with restraint.
Interesting. And how do they frame that acidity in the taste description? Still sharp?
They actually described it more positively here. They called it a vibrant, awakening quality that makes you pay attention. So maybe sharp wasn't quite the right word, or maybe it integrates well. It sounds like it's a core characteristic, not necessarily a flaw.
Right. Part of its intended style. And what about the feel of it in your mouth? The texture?
Described as medium-bodied with a creamy mousse texture. That's that lovely, soft, foamy bubble feeling, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it coats the palate nicely.
It sounds like it has substance without being heavy.
Yeah.
The reviewer mentions a structural backbone.
Mm-hmm. And those fine, persistent bubbles we talked about, they contribute to an elegant mouthfeel. Sounds quite sophisticated texturally.
And then the finish. How does it wrap up?
Decidedly dry and clean. That sounds good. With impressive length, too, so the flavors linger.
And crucially, no lingering sweetness. But they did note a pleasant hint of spice that stays with you.
Nice. A little spice on the finish.
Yeah, the reviewer felt this sophisticated finish really ties it all together and elevates the whole experience. You get the vibrancy, the complexity, the creamy feel, and then this long, dry, slightly spicy end.
Sounds like quite a journey in the glass.
Yeah.
Now, the reviewer didn't just rely on their own taste buds, did they? They brought in some other opinion.
That's right. They shared some feedback from friends or other reviewers.
And what was the general feeling?
The consensus is generally positive, apparently. People seem to appreciate how it balances power with finesse.
And they recognize that it stands apart from sweeter, more commercial rosé champagnes. So that unique personality comes through for others, too.
Yeah, and they included some specific quotes. One person said, this champagne needs a few minutes to open up. Don't rush your judgment.
Ah, good tip. Let it breathe a bit.
Yeah.
What else?
Another comment was, not your typical grocery store rosé champagne. It's got unexpected depth and character. Again, reinforcing that uniqueness.
Makes sense.
And then there was this fun one. I brought this to my book club, and it was a hit. Though my husband thought it was too sharp when he tried it. More for me.
Uh-huh. That perfectly sums up that potential divide, doesn't it? The acidity thing.
Absolutely. It highlights the pattern the review points out. This champagne really clicks with people who like structured, complex wines, maybe drier styles.
But it might disappoint anyone expecting something sweet and immediately approachable.
Yeah.
It seems like it knows its audience.
Which naturally leads us to, how do you best enjoy it if you are in that target audience, and what food works well? The review had some strong advice on serving right.
Crucial advice, it seems. Temperature matters tremendously.
Okay, how so?
They were emphatic. Serve it too cold, and you miss half its personality. That's a big miss.
Wow. Okay, so what's the sweet spot then?
They recommend aiming for around 45, 48 degrees air, which is about 9 degrees C. That's actually a bit warmer than you might typically chill champagne. Apparently, those few extra degrees really help unlock the aromas and flavors.
Good practical tip. So, assuming you've got the temperature right, what about food pairings, given that acidity and complexity?
The reviews suggest several things. Sushi and sashimi are mentioned. The idea is that the mineral notes in the wine complement the raw fish really well.
Okay, that makes sense. Minerality and seafood often work.
Also suggested shrimp tacos with a touch of lime, triple cream brie or camembert. Think rich cheese cutting through the acidity.
Ooh, cheese,
A
yes.
strawberry and goat cheese salad, maybe playing on the berry notes but with the tangy cheese. And grilled salmon with herbs. Lots of options that play with richness or freshness.
Sounds versatile within a certain range, but wasn't there a really unusual pairing mentioned?
Ah, yes, the surprising one. Buttered popcorn for movie night.
Okay, I love that. A bit high-low, isn't it? Champagne and popcorn. But I can kind of see it, the acidity cutting through the butter, the bubbles.
Yeah.
Could be fun.
Totally. And beyond specific foods, the review also mentions that just the bottle itself, the look, the character, makes it a spectacular centerpiece for, say, a wine and cheese night. It gets people talking.
So putting it all together, the almost $100 price, the very distinct, maybe slightly challenging taste profile, the serving requirements. When is this bottle the right call? And for who?
Well, the reviewer is very upfront. This is not an everyday sipper. That price point positions it firmly in the moments worth celebrating category.
Like what kind of moments? Did they give example?
Yeah, things like landing that big promotion or maybe a best friend visiting after years apart, or even just deciding to make a regular Friday night feel extra special. They actually shared a specific success story bringing it to a small gathering with close girlfriends, pairing it with a simple charcuterie board, and it apparently stole the show.
Nice. So what makes it potentially worth that splurge for those moments? What's the unique selling point according to the review?
It really boils down to its uniqueness, that distinct personality. In a sea of rosé champagnes that can sometimes feel a bit, well, samey, this one apparently stands out. It's not trying to please everyone, and there's something compelling about that authenticity. It makes it interesting.
Okay, so let's try and summarize who the ideal drinker for this is based on the review. You'd probably love this if.
If you tend to prefer dry, structured wines, if you appreciate complexity, and you actually like paying attention to what's in your glass.
If you enjoy mineral-driven champagnes that have real character.
Right. And if you're actively looking for something beyond the usual big famous champagne brands.
And critically, if you don't mind investing in a quality bottle for those special times.
Exactly.
Right.
And on the other hand, who should probably give this one a miss?
Well, if you prefer your sparkling wines sweeter and more overtly fruit-forward, this might not be for you.
If you're on a tight budget, obviously that price is a hurdle.
Also, if you're maybe new to champagne and still figuring out what you like, this might be a bit of a challenging starting point.
Yeah, maybe ease in with something else first. And finally, if you just want something simple and uncomplicated for, like casual sipping at a party, this probably isn't it either. It demands a bit more focus.
Okay, so it paints a very clear picture of who this wine is and isn't for. Which brings us to the final verdict from Wineful Living. Where did they land overall?
They concluded that the Vilmart and C Cuvée Rubis champagne definitely earns that 7.6 out of 10 rating. It's an honest score reflecting its strengths and weaknesses.
They acknowledged it's not perfect, right? Mostly due to the price and the fact that its specific style won't click with everyone.
Absolutely. But they strongly emphasize that what it does do, it does with distinction and character. It achieves its goal, stylistically speaking.
And what was the reviewer's personal takeaway? Would they buy it again?
Yes, absolutely, they said. But for the right occasion. It's apparently secured a spot in their personal special occasion rotation for 2025. They summed it up as refined, slightly challenging, and memorable.
That sounds like a fair assessment based on everything we've discussed.
Well, man, it serves as a good nudge, doesn't it? To sometimes venture beyond the familiar names and explore these smaller producers like Vilmart and C who have really distinctive points of view.
Definitely. So the final recommendation from the source is basically, if you're curious, if the description resonates with your palate, and if the budget allows, it offers a genuine and thought-provoking champagne experience.
I think this whole deep dive into just one specific bottle, really guided by the details in that single review, gives you, the listener, such a clear sense of whether this champagne might fit your life. It goes so much deeper than just a number score, doesn't it? It gets into the why behind its personality.
It really does. And it makes you think differently about value, too. It's not just the dollars and cents.
Which leads to a good final thought, perhaps.
As you think about your next special bottle, maybe even considering something unique like this Vilmart Rosé, ask yourself this. When you're exploring these complex, sometimes challenging wines, where does the true value lie? Is it in the price? Is it in the score somebody else gave it? Or is it ultimately found in the personal experience you have with it and maybe even the conversations it starts?